Welcome to Star Expose. If you love celebrity news and real entertainment updates, you're in the right place. Gerry Turner and Theresa Nist's story has always been wrapped in layers of tenderness, mystery, heartbreak, hope, and the kind of late-in-life romance that made so many people believe in love again. Their journey started with possibility and ended with surprise. And just when fans thought they had heard every detail, a new revelation emerged, one that has completely reshaped the narrative of what happened between them. Because according to Gerry himself in his newly released memoir, something happened in the fantasy suite. Something powerful, something private, something that transformed the entire trajectory of their relationship. And this moment, hidden from cameras and the world, may be the real reason he chose Theresa in the end. But to understand the weight of that revelation, to grasp the emotional gravity of it, we have to go back to the beginning, to the night Gerry Turner stepped into the spotlight of the Golden Bachelor as a widower searching for a second chance at love. A man carrying memories, grief, hope, and a longing to feel connected again. A man whose vulnerability made America instantly fall for him. Gerry entered the show with sincerity etched across his face. He didn't try to be charming or witty or showy. He simply showed up with an open heart. And his openness set the tone for the entire season. Women arrived one by one, each hoping they might be the one to touch his heart, each bringing their own stories, their own pasts, their own hopes for a future. And then came Theresa. Theresa Nist walked into that mansion not as someone who was trying to impress the world, but as a woman who had lived, loved, lost, and learned. She had a quiet softness, a calming presence, and a warm honesty that made her stand out without even trying. She didn't dominate the room, she didn't fight for attention, she didn't chase drama. She simply showed up as herself. And Gerry noticed. Their connection grew slowly, the way real connections often do. Not like a firework exploding instantly, but like a candle gradually burning brighter. Their conversations were filled with meaning, not performance. Their chemistry felt natural. There was a sense of familiarity between them, as if their souls were catching up on something they missed in another time. But while the world saw sparks, the real turning point came later. Much later, when the cameras were finally turned off. Fantasy Suite Night is known as the most private part of the show. A night without microphones, without producers, without the ever-watchful eye of the audience. A night where walls drop, where honesty replaces caution, where the truth isn't staged, it simply exists. And that is exactly what happened when Gerry and Theresa stepped into their overnight time together. In his memoir, Gerry reveals something that left fans stunned. Within the first 2 hours of their fantasy suite, he met a completely different version of Theresa. Not a changed woman, not a stranger, but a deeper, fuller, rawer version of her. The side that the show never captured. He said this version wasn't meant for the world, it was meant for him alone. And that mattered. This wasn't the polished, camera-aware Theresa America saw. This wasn't the composed, elegant, soft-spoken woman giving interviews. This was the real Theresa, the one who laughed freely, shared openly, exposed her vulnerabilities, and allowed herself to be seen without the shield of television etiquette. Gerry describes the moment with a softness that almost breaks your heart. He said in the quiet warmth of that room, Theresa became someone new, someone unfiltered, someone more emotionally available than she had been at any point during filming. And in that intimacy, something shifted inside him. They talked, really talked, about their fears, their dreams, their pasts, their children, their regrets, their hopes. The conversation stretched for hours, peeling back layer after layer until they reached the core of who they truly were beyond the show's structure. And at the end of that long, vulnerable night, something powerful happened, something even Gerry didn't expect. He told her he loved her. Not because it was the expected thing to say, not because it fit the storyline, not because it was romantic in the context of a TV show. He told her he loved her because in that moment, it was the most honest thing he could say. He fell for her, not the contestant, not the frontrunner, not the public persona, but the private woman who existed when the lights were off. That confession became the invisible anchor of their love story. And it explains everything that came next. When viewers saw Gerry pick Theresa over the other women, over Leslie, over Faith, over all the incredible, brave women who opened their hearts, some people questioned his decision. Some argued he had stronger chemistry with others. Some believed other relationships were more stable. But none of them had access to the moment that changed everything for him. Only Gerry and Theresa knew. Only they had lived that emotional shift. And that hidden turning point is what carried them all the way to the proposal stage. Gerry eventually dropped to one knee and asked Theresa to marry him. And in her joy, she accepted. The world watched with misty eyes as two people well into their later years found a second chance, a fairy tale many thought impossible. Their televised wedding felt like a celebration for everyone who believed love has no age limit, no expiration date, no deadline. But fairy tales don't always align with reality. Because after just 3 months of marriage, Gerry Turner and Theresa Nist shocked everyone by announcing they were ending their relationship. Fans were confused, heartbroken, frustrated. People had invested emotion, belief, hope in their story. They wanted this couple to succeed, not just for entertainment, but because it symbolized something bigger. So what happened? The reasons they shared publicly were vague, polite, and delicate. They talked about distance, they talked about logistics, they talked about separate lives that didn't blend the way they hoped. But behind that carefully worded explanation, one truth became clear. Whatever version of Theresa Gerry met that night in the fantasy suite, the version he fell in love with, didn't translate into a sustainable long-term relationship. Not because she wasn't sincere that night, not because the moment wasn't real, but because sometimes the version of someone you see in an emotionally heightened environment doesn't match the version that emerges in day-to-day life. Fantasy suites allow vulnerability. Real life demands compromise. Fantasy suites create closeness. Real life exposes differences. Fantasy suites give intimacy. Real life reveals incompatibility. And when the cameras stopped rolling and real life began, the two worlds clashed. Gerry and Theresa tried. Truly. They committed. They smiled. They hoped. But they discovered that love, even love that feels profound in a private moment, doesn't always mean long-term compatibility. And their story shifted from romance to realism. It wasn't a failure. It was simply human. Gerry has since moved on. He is now engaged to someone new, opening another chapter of his life with renewed optimism. Fans have mixed feelings. Some fear he moved too quickly. Others celebrate his happiness. Some are protective of Theresa, worried she was left behind emotionally. But Theresa? She remains a symbol of grace. She continues living her life with dignity, maturity, and the quiet strength she's always had. Fans want her to find love again, not out of desperation, but because she deserves someone who sees her as completely as she opened herself to Gerry that night. The fantasy suite moment remains the emotional climax of their story. Without it, Gerry's final choice never would have made sense. Without it, the proposal might never have happened. Without it, they never would have shared their televised wedding day or their brief marriage. That night was both the beginning and the turning point. It was the flame that burned brightly and then faded. Not because it wasn't real, but because sometimes the most intense moments in life are meant to be temporary. They show us what we can feel, not what we can sustain. Theresa gave Gerry something precious that night, vulnerability. And Gerry gave Theresa something equally valuable, being chosen. And for a time, that was enough. Their story now exists in the space between romantic and tragic, hopeful and heartbreaking, emotional and instructive. It's a reminder that love isn't always linear, that deep connection doesn't always equal long-term success, and that even when things don't last, they can still matter deeply, and that the most private moments often reshape the most public stories. Gerry Turner saw a different Theresa in the fantasy suite, a version of her that captured his heart in a way no one else could, and though their marriage didn't last, that moment remains one of the most honest glimpses into the nature of their love. It wasn't for the cameras, it wasn't for the viewers, it wasn't for the show. It was for them. And sometimes that's enough. Thanks for watching Star Expose. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next big story.